The sun was barely up on August 31st, 2003, when a couple drove out to the desert near Las Cruces, New Mexico. They were target shooters, looking for a quiet spot to practice. What they found instead would change everything. Lying face down in the dirt near an old landfill, half naked, legs spread apart. A young woman, but this wasn't an accident. She'd been sexually assaulted, strangled, and someone had tried to destroy the evidence by dousing her shoulders and back with flammable liquid and setting her on fire. The killer thought they'd gotten away with it. They were wrong, because underneath her fingernails, there was DNA, skin, a testament to how hard she'd fought back. The only problem? It would take nearly 4 years to identify her killer. Her name was Katie Sepich. She was 22 years old, and the fight she put up in her final moments would eventually rewrite American law. Katie Sepich was described by her mother as outspoken, vivacious, intelligent. She was the oldest of 3 children, close with her parents Dave and Jayanne, and protective of her younger siblings AJ and Caroline. She'd just graduated from New Mexico State University with a business degree. That fall, she was supposed to start grad school to get her MBA. She worked as a waitress at El Sombrero Patio Cafe, the kind of person who had a natural ability to make people warm to her instantly. That weekend, the last weekend of August 2003, Labor Day weekend, Katie had plans. She wanted to spend time with friends, have fun, then head to her parents' house in Carlsbad for a big family cookout. Simple plans. But on the night of August 30th, those plans fell apart. Saturday night, Katie and her boyfriend Joe Bischoff went out with friends. Bar crawling. They hit one bar, then another, then closed down the second one. After that, they moved to a friend's house to end the night, a house party celebrating the start of grad school. Upwards of 20 to 30 other students were in and out of the house that evening. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Several people at the party saw Katie and Joe arguing. She'd found him kissing another girl, his roommate's sister. Katie was furious, and sometime around 3 a.m., without telling anyone, Katie left the party. She left without her purse, without her phone, without her keys. Her home was only a few blocks away. She decided to walk. When Joe Bischoff watched her walk away from that party in the early morning hours of August 31st, he had no idea he would never see her alive again. The next morning, Tracy Waters woke up at the friend's house where the party had been held. Joe Bischoff was looking for her, asking if she knew where Katie was. Tracy looked for Katie at their house, but Katie hadn't made it home. Tracy asked Joe what happened. At first, he said he didn't know where she went. Then he admitted they'd gotten into an argument. Katie had stormed off late the night before. She'd left without her purse, phone, and keys. Tracy picked up her phone to call Katie, but Joe explained that when he tried to call her, her phone was still there with them. They checked Katie's car and figured she'd probably walked home. The house she and Tracy shared was only a few blocks away. Joe and a friend drove up and down the streets thinking she might be walking somewhere. Tracy called hospitals and jailhouses, thinking Katie might have been picked up for being drunk and disorderly. But there was no trace of her. Hours passed. After a few hours, Tracy called Katie's parents and asked, "Have you heard from Katie?" Those 6 words changed everything. The Sepichs lived in Carlsbad, 200 miles east of Las Cruces. They owned a janitorial supply operation and commercial cleaning company. At first, Katie's mom thought maybe she was just at a friend's house. Tracy explained that she'd already called everyone. Tracy asked if she could file a missing persons report. Her mom said yes immediately. Shortly after, police came to Tracy's home and asked for a picture of Katie Sepich and an explanation of what happened. The Sepichs jumped in their car and raced toward Las Cruces. Their daughter was missing, and they had no idea where she could be. It was approximately 11 a.m. on the 31st of August, 2003, when a target shooter spotted something strange near the old city dump east of Las Cruces, New Mexico. As he walked closer, he quickly determined it wasn't a piece of garbage. It was the body of a partially clothed woman. When officers arrived, they found Katie Sepich face down, half naked, with her legs spread apart. She had been strangled, and there was evidence of sexual assault. She had also been covered in a flammable liquid that was poured over her back and set on fire. Police believed it was an attempt to destroy evidence. Fortunately, It failed. The killer left DNA, including skin, under Katie's fingernails. Police found tire tracks at the scene that appeared to be from a small truck, leading right to where Katie's body was found. An autopsy determined that Katie's cause of death was strangulation. Later that day, Katie's parents received the phone call no parent should ever receive. When her dad, Dave Sepich, later identified her body in the morgue, he told reporters, "I fell to my knees." Police did not believe she was murdered where her body was found as there were no signs of a struggle at the dump site. So where had it happened? They searched Katie's house and discovered that her bedroom window was locked but the screen had been removed. Katie's shoes were sitting outside her first-story window. There were also signs of a struggle. Katie had left her key at the party, so police concluded she intended to climb in the window but was attacked at the same time. Katie walked home alone from the party that night. As she was attempting to get into her house, she was brutally attacked outside her bedroom window. Think about that for a moment. Katie made it home. She was steps away from safety, from her bed, from locking the door behind her. Her roommate's mom was inside the house asleep. Though there were signs of a struggle in the gravel, Katie could not scream because of her condition, and the roommate's mom unfortunately never woke up. She couldn't scream. She couldn't call for help. All she could do was fight. DNA was detected on anal and vaginal swabs. A DNA profile had been extracted and uploaded into the National Forensic Database called CODIS. Police had two solid pieces of evidence: the tire tracks and the DNA under Katie's fingernails. Police spoke to everyone who was at the party. They requested DNA from everyone that had been at the party that night. All but one person complied. That person was Joe Bischoff. Police first investigated Katie's boyfriend, Joe Bischoff. Joe had attended college with Katie, and they had been going out for about 8 months. Joe was moving 300 miles away to attend grad school, but he and Katie planned to stay together. They had already worked out a schedule for when they would visit each other. The day before, they had gone out to buy Katie a ring with her birthstone as a symbol of their relationship. He told authorities they were planning to get married after he gave her a ring. But there was that argument at the party. Joe told Tracy and the police that there was an argument. It wasn't until he was in the interrogation room that he admitted why Katie was so angry that she stormed off. Several attendees saw Katie and Joe arguing after she found him kissing another girl, his roommate's sister. That's why she left. That's why she was furious. Even though police suspected Joe, they had nothing solid to go on and had to let him go. He told them that he had to leave to get back to school, but he would be available if they needed him for anything. However, once he was out of town, when police tried to get in touch with him, he told them that he had a lawyer and everything had to go through him. And remember, he was the only person at that party who refused to give his DNA. He was among the few people in her wide circle of friends who didn't attend the funeral. Convinced he was the culprit, police stashed a hidden camera at her gravesite to catch a confession. Her parents offered a reward of $50,000 for information. Later, they upped it to $100,000. Detectives eventually obtained Joe Bischoff's DNA from Katie's bedsheets, which ultimately exonerated him. He wasn't the killer. So, if it wasn't her boyfriend, who was it? The DNA profile from Katie's body was uploaded into CODIS and cross-referenced against the offender database every week to look for a match. But week after week, nothing. No match, no leads, no suspects. With Joe Bischoff eliminated as the culprit and after finding no other person with an apparent grudge against Katie, investigators began to suspect she had been randomly killed, the toughest kind of murder to solve. Katie fought back. She gave them DNA. She gave them everything she could. But the person who killed her wasn't in the system. And that's when Katie's parents started asking questions that would change everything. The detective in charge of Katie's case explained what they had. Katie had fought desperately for her life. The skin and blood of her attacker was under her fingernails. The DNA found there had been uploaded into a national database called CODIS, and every week they would cross-reference it against offenders for a match. Katie's mom felt hope for the first time. She said to the detective, "This was a really bad guy. So he'll do something else to get arrested, they'll take his DNA, and then we'll have him." The detective's response stunned her. "Oh no, Jayan, it's illegal to take DNA when someone is arrested. We have to wait until they're convicted." Think about that for a second. Police take fingerprints when someone is arrested. They take their photograph. They document everything. But DNA? The most accurate, powerful scientific tool available to identify criminals? Illegal to collect at arrest. Only after conviction. Only after someone has been tried, sentenced, and sent to prison. That's when their DNA goes into the system. Katie's parents couldn't believe it. They started doing research. They learned that almost every state took DNA upon felony conviction. But at that time, only 5 states had laws allowing DNA to be taken upon felony arrest. 5 states? Out of 50. The Sepichs discovered something else. A study from Chicago followed 8 convicted felons. Had their DNA been taken upon arrest instead of conviction, 60 violent crimes could have been prevented. 53 rapes and murders. Prevented. In Maryland, a study identified 20 violent crimes that could have been stopped if DNA samples had been required upon arrest for just 3 individuals. In Colorado, the Denver District Attorney's Office released a study showing 47 violent crimes that could have been prevented if DNA had been collected upon felony arrest for 5 people. The numbers were staggering, and Katie's parents started asking themselves, how many other families are waiting? How many other killers are walking free because their DNA isn't in the system yet? They offered a $50,000 reward for information. Then they increased it to $100,000. But money couldn't solve this problem. Only the law could. Meanwhile, the investigation continued. Police kept searching. They kept cross-referencing that DNA profile every single week. Nothing. Months became a year, then 2 years, then 3. And then, in late 2006, something happened. 9 weeks after Katie was murdered, on November 13, 2003, a man armed with a knife broke into the apartment of 2 young women, also students at New Mexico State. The women locked themselves in the bathroom and called 911. Police arrived and arrested the intruder before he could hurt them. His name was Gabriel Adrian Avila. He was 24 years old, a married Mexican national. He was charged with aggravated burglary and intent to commit aggravated assault. But remember, this was 2003. DNA collection upon arrest? Still illegal in New Mexico. Avila was released on bond to get his affairs in order, and then he disappeared. He stayed there for nearly a year until he tried to re-enter the United States in 2005. That's when he was captured. In March 2004, he was convicted of the burglary charges. But even then, he didn't go straight to prison. He was released on bond again, and he ran. Again. It wasn't until November 2004, over a year after Katie's murder, that he was finally apprehended and sentenced to 9 years in prison. Only then, as a convicted felon entering the prison system, was his DNA collected. But here's the part that will make your blood boil. It took another 2 years for that DNA to be tested and entered into CODIS. 2 more years. December 2006. Almost 3.5 years after Katie was murdered, that's when the match finally came back. Gabriel Adrian Avila. The man who killed Katie Sepich had been arrested just 9 weeks after her murder. He'd been in and out of custody multiple times. He'd fled the country. He'd committed more crimes. And the whole time, Katie's DNA evidence sat in a lab, waiting. When investigators got that DNA match in December 2006, they jumped into action. They quickly located the truck Avila had used. In the center console, they found a ring. A diamond ring. It was Katie's ring. Not the promise ring Joe had given her the day before she died. A different ring. One she'd been wearing that night. Gabriel Avila had kept it as a trophy. Police went to the prison where Avila was serving his 9-year sentence for the burglary. They sat him down in an interrogation room. At first, he denied everything. He said he had nothing to do with Katie's murder. He'd never even heard of her. Then they showed him the ring, and they told him about the DNA match. His skin, under her fingernails. There was no way out. He confessed. Gabriel Avila told detectives he was out driving around that night. His wife was out of town. He was in Katie's neighborhood trying to score cocaine. He almost hit Katie with his truck as she was walking down the street. He got out to see if she was okay. She told him she was fine. She lived just a few blocks away. He got back in his truck, drove off. But then he stopped down the road, and he decided to follow her. He saw her at her bedroom window. She was trying to climb inside because she'd left her keys at the party. He approached her, asked if she needed help. She told him she just couldn't get into her house. She didn't have her purse. And that's when, according to Avila, he suddenly lost it. He grabbed her from behind. pulled her down to the ground. She tried to fight him off. He raped her, both vaginally and anally. Then he strangled her with his bare hands. He kept going until she stopped moving. He believed she would be able to identify him. He dragged her body to his truck, threw her in the back, drove to the landfill where he dumped her face down in the dirt. He grabbed a bottle of alcohol from his truck and poured it over her shoulders and back. Set her on fire. But it didn't work. The fire went out. Gabriel Avila drove away, leaving Katie's body in that desert lot. And then he went home to his life. His wife. His job. Like nothing had happened. Gabriel Avila was 23 years old when he murdered Katie. He was a married father. A Mexican national working as a truck driver in Las Cruces. People who knew him described him as ordinary, approachable, a regular guy. Katie never knew him, never met him, never crossed his path before that night. This wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't personal. It was random, a crime of opportunity. Katie was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Gabriel Avila decided to take everything from her. In May 2007, Gabriel Avila pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, rape, kidnapping, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to 69 years in prison. That sentence would be served consecutively to his 9-year sentence for the burglary. He won't be eligible for release until 2085. Katie's dad said it best. This case would not have been solved without the DNA sample. This guy was not on anyone's radar screen. But Katie's story doesn't end with Avila's conviction. While waiting for her killer to be found, Katie's parents started asking questions. Questions that made people uncomfortable. Why couldn't DNA be collected at arrest? They learned that DNA from felony arrests could prevent crimes and save lives. Studies showed that if just a handful of criminals had been required to provide DNA at arrest instead of conviction, dozens of violent crimes could have been stopped. Dave and Katie Sepich didn't just wait for justice. They decided to fight for change. They went to the New Mexico State Legislature in 2006. Their message was simple. DNA should be taken upon felony arrest, just like fingerprints and photographs. It's the most accurate, powerful scientific tool available to identify criminals and protect the innocent. The legislature listened. In January 2006, Katie's law passed in New Mexico with only 5 no votes. It went into effect at midnight on January 1, 2007. 1 hour and 14 minutes later, at 1:14 a.m., the first person arrested under the new law provided a DNA sample. Katie Sepich didn't stop there. She traveled to 27 states to campaign for versions of Katie's law. She testified at more than 30 legislative hearings. Her message resonated. One by one, states began passing their own versions of the law. Colorado, California, Virginia, Florida, Texas. By 2010, half the country had adopted some form of Katie's law. That same year, Congress took notice. The Katie Sepich Enhanced DNA Collection Act was introduced in the House of Representatives. It would provide federal funding and incentives for states to implement DNA collection programs at arrest. President Barack Obama publicly supported the legislation, appearing on America's Most Wanted to explain why. He said it was the right thing to do, that the National Registry becomes so important because states need to share information across borders. In December 2012, President Obama signed Katie's law into federal law. The law provided grants to help states cover up to 100% of their first-year costs of implementing DNA collection programs. Katie's law has changed everything. Over 30 states now have statutes similar to Katie's law on the books. DNA from arrestees is collected, analyzed, and compared against CODIS to solve crimes and identify dangerous repeat offenders. The law protects privacy. The DNA profile doesn't contain genetic information about race, medical history, or disease. It's just 13 to 15 numeric indicators used solely for identification. And if someone is not convicted, their DNA profile is expunged from the system. But most importantly, Katie's law has solved countless cold cases. It's connected criminals to murders, rapes, and assaults they committed years earlier. It's exonerated innocent people who would have spent decades in prison for crimes they didn't commit. And it's prevented future crimes by catching repeat offenders early, before they can hurt someone else. Katie's mom said it best. As we learned more about how DNA can solve crimes, We also learned it could do so much more. It can prevent crimes and save lives. The impact of Katie's law isn't theoretical. It's real. In 2008, Katie Sepich founded a nonprofit organization called DNA Saves. Its mission was to educate policymakers and the public about the power of DNA databases. She testified more than 40 times before state legislative committees across the United States. She testified twice before the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary. She traveled to 27 states. She appeared on national television. She met with governors, senators, and representatives, all while carrying the weight of losing her daughter. Over 31 states now have laws similar to Katie's law on their books. The federal government provides funding to help states implement these programs, and the results speak for themselves. Cold cases from decades ago are being solved because someone arrested today has their DNA matched to evidence collected years earlier. Serial offenders are being caught before they can claim more victims. Innocent people who were wrongly convicted are being exonerated. Katie's favorite word was zest. She loved the sound of it, loved what it meant. Katie lived her life with zest. She used to say, "Wake up every day expecting something wonderful to happen." Katie Sepich never got to finish her MBA. She never got to build the career she dreamed of. She never got to see the world or start a family or grow old. But in her final moments, fighting for her life in the dirt outside her bedroom window, Katie Sepich gave everything she had. She scratched. She clawed. She fought back with every ounce of strength. And in doing so, she didn't just help catch her own killer. She changed the law of an entire nation. Because of Katie's fight, thousands of families have gotten answers. Thousands of criminals have been caught, and thousands of future crimes have been prevented. One young woman. One terrible night. One law that saves lives every single day. That's Katie's legacy.